We're getting the same information. A lot of that information has come out through some of the testimony this week, as we've had various committees, various officials who have been investigating the shooting of July the 13th. But it does appear that on at least one, if not two different occasions, that the shooter did fly a drone, including earlier in the day prior to the shooting. The information that we have received is that there was no counter drone usage by the Secret Service, by the Pennsylvania State Police. In our questioning of one of the members of the Pennsylvania State Police, they said that they did have the availability of drones, but they were not requested to fly those drones by the Secret Service. Again, the Secret Service was responsible for the operational plan, and they made the decision not only not to fly drones that day, which would have given them a bird's eye view of what was occurring, but you know from being at the scene that there's a water tower located roughly 100 yards away from where the shooter was positioned, and that if law enforcement would have had someone up in that water tower, they would have been able to cover the entire perimeter from that elevated position. And so clearly another failure that they did not have eyes in the skies that day, either in the form of drones or in the form of having someone in an elevated position that would have been able to look down and cover the rally site. The Secret Service has not provided the Homeland Security Committee any information. The Secret Service director refused to testify before our committee. She was subpoenaed and did testify before oversight. So we've not gotten answers to that yet. That's something that we think is extremely important. We know that Secret Service has access. They have the ability to use drones. Again, the Pennsylvania State Police also have drones that they could have flown that day. And so being an outdoor event covering a large area, it would have made sense that they would have wanted to, again, have some eyes in the sky, either by way of drones or having people at elevated positions. You know, the Secret Service very well could have assigned officers to be on the roof that day, the roof top where the shooting occurred. But we heard the excuse there made by the director that she felt that the slope of the roof was so steep that it would have endangered the safety of the officers. But clearly that's not true. I was there. Carlos Jimenez from our committee, who is 70 years old, easily traversed the roof. There was no safety concerns. And so I believe that the planning that day, the execution of the planning and the leadership, those were all three abysmal failures that resulted in the shooting of President Donald Trump. You know, I think that's just another excuse that she was using to deflect upon the poor decisions and the failures of her agency. You know, Congress increased the budget of the Secret Service, knowing it was a presidential year, knowing that they would need additional resources, additional personnel. And so during our prior budget, we gave them actually more resources than they requested to try to make sure that they would be prepared for the protective details that they would have to provide to both presidential and vice presidential candidates. They had, and they've known for an extended period of time when the elections were going to occur. They know the dates of the convention. These things are not things that should have surprised the Secret Service, and they were unprepared. And I put that, and I place that blame on the director and the leadership of the Secret Service. If there are other missions that they perform, and I know that they are, those agents performing those other missions, they should be pulled off of those law enforcement investigations and should be assigned to protective detail. Again, this is the agency that has been tasked with protecting federal elected officials. That is their number one top priority, number 1, 2, and 3. And it is nothing more than an excuse to be able to try to cast blame on the fact that there were not resources available. If the resources were needed, if they don't have enough money in their budget to protect the elected officials, let Congress know so we can appropriate the money so that they can carry out their mission. They failed to do so. And I think it is wrong for her to try to blame Congress for the failures of her agency. You know, one of the things that I'm concerned about is Director Cheadle admitted in her testimony Monday that she had never visited the site where the shooting occurred. I think that is a fundamental failure. She should have been on the ground as quickly as she could have arrived in Butler, Pennsylvania after the shooting. That's what leaders do. leaders respond. Leaders are there on the ground. Leaders are making sure that the investigation is ongoing. And I know that her agency was not the lead investigative agency. That later became an FBI matter. But I think it was important that she should have been there, not necessarily during the rally itself, because no one would have predicted that the shooting would have occurred. But as soon as she learned of the shooting, she should have immediately responded. She should have been there on the ground. She should have been determining the failures of the agency, what they could have done, and tried to work better. And she should have held those agents responsible for the operation plan. They should have been terminated, in my opinion, immediately. That should not have been in question. Clearly, those agents' op plan was not up to par that day. And because of that, we almost lost the former president of the United States. And so I think there are a great deal of questions that, even though she has resigned, that Congress needs to continue to drill down on the former director, because, again, not only was it a failure of the men and women who were there who developed that op plan, but it was a failure of leadership within the Secret Service. And she's the one that sets the tone within that agency. And so we need to continue to look at the things that she did wrong, again, to make sure that this never happens again.